Hello and welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, the conversation. I'm excited because I have a fellow professional organizer, an author, and a friend, Tracy McCubbin, and we are going to be talking about really how to really just be happy in the new year and actually get rid of our stuff. And of course, if you haven't already gotten it, you need to get a copy of her book. This is one of her books, so I'll show the other one near the end. But Tracy, thank you so much for joining us again.
You know how I love seeing you.
And I love seeing you too. So, my first question to you, and I was thinking, you are an author, a speaker, you are like the guru of organizing. Is this something that was something you always wanted to do, or was it just something that all of a sudden, because you really started doing it, people started really paying attention to all the wonderful tips that you provide?
Yeah, it wasn't something that I wanted to do. I was doing a bunch of things and I was it's funny. I was talking to my one of the young women who works for me and she was having a bit of a life crisis and she's like 26. She's like, I don't know what I want to do with my life and I feel like everyone, and I said, for me, my life was a series of figuring out what I didn't want to do. And that's a path, right? I don't want to work in an office. I don't want to work in the entertainment field. Everything started to peel away. And then I fell into doing this and it just clicked and I loved it. And I never set out to be an expert or a thought leader. I just, it's a big word to use, but it sort of became a calling. Like I almost had no choice. I found that people could hear me without feeling judged. And I just, something bigger took over, if that makes sense.
It does. It really does make sense because what we do is I think people just think, okay, they just come in and make things look good and they get rid of stuff and organize stuff. But what we do, we really build relationships, and a lot of those relationships can take us through not only several years, but sometimes decades, at least for me. So, I understand the whole calling part. So,
Well, and I
you know,
think that's it. And that you bring it such a good point, Janet. And I want people out there listening who are struggling to get organized to understand it's not a one and done. You don't get organized once. And in fact, I could just flip the camera and show you the pile of clothes on my Peloton bike that I haven't put away yet. It's not a one and done thing. It is a process. It is constant.
yeah,
It is like you open that door, you open your front door and stuff comes in. So I think people get really frustrated because they're like, well, I got all decluttered and organized and now it's back. It's like, yes, because you live in your house, right?
yep.
So I really want people to understand that it's an ongoing process. And as your life changes, your needs change. And you know this, I've worked with people. I'm going on 20 years in the business now. I've worked with people for decades.
Yeah.
I just was doing a house, longtime clients. I started with them when they first got married and she moved into his bachelor pad. So then we had to get it ready for her. And then they had
Mhm.
baby number one, then baby number two, then baby number three.
Oh, wow.
And I moved them. And now baby number one's getting ready to go to college. And so it's an ongoing thing. So I think people beat themselves up and think, well, I didn't get it right the first time. It's like, well, there's no right. There's what works and it's going to change. And you have to always be mindful.
And you do, Tracy, and you do. And so your book is Make Space for Happiness. And one of the things, because we get into a new year and on the top of everybody's list is get organized. But what are those areas sometimes that we should focus on that will really make an impact on our happiness? Because sometimes we look at our entire house. I know you share this with clients. It's like, focus on one thing. What's going to make you happy? So, in your opinion, like, what are sometimes we just try to do too much, or we're trying to look for happiness maybe in the closet when we should be looking over here in a chair?
That's such a great question. I always tell people, start, especially if you don't have the luxury of like, I'm going to do my whole house for 2 weeks, start in the pain points. What's has the most effect on your daily life? Is it your kitchen? Do you feel like you don't even want to cook because it's got stuff everywhere? Is it your closet because half your clothes you don't wear or they don't fit you? Start where I like to say start where you're going to have the most impact on your daily life, because when you change that thing, then you can start to radiate out and hit the other areas. But what has the
Yep.
biggest impact? I mean, I know you've seen this, and people ask me about this all the time. Like, what's the weirdest thing you say? And I'm like, well, that's just, I mean, I can tell you all sorts of things, but I said the thing for me that I see that is the hardest is how many people don't sleep in their own bed because it's
Mm.
piled with stuff and they're sleeping on the couch. You've
Mm-hmm.
seen it, right? You've seen, and
Oh
people
yeah.
who are
Mm.
lovely and not, you would never say lazy or anything. So it's
Yeah.
like start in a place that's going to have the most impact on your daily life and then
Mm.
feel that change, live in that change, and then it's going to, radiate out to the rest of your house.
And you're so right. And and you started saying something about how, when we work with people over decades. And I think, we're in a new year. Now, some people, their lives are going to change in this new year. Maybe it's retirement, maybe it's downsizing, maybe it might be adding, a puppy or maybe even a baby. How do you make that transition? Because you're excited about it. I'm excited about the puppy. I'm excited about the baby, or I'm even excited about retiring. But it seems sometimes when I work with people, specifically with the retiring, I work with a client, and she retired several years before. She was still holding on to the suits, and I'm like, you don't need them anymore because you've got really nice separates. So how do we get to that place? Because it's about, finding happiness, but it seems like we're holding on sometimes to the past.
Yeah, I think, I always say this, and I talk about this in the first book. If you have a lot of stuff from the past, the message that you're giving yourself is that your best days are behind you, right? That's how you used to live and those were the good old days and so what are the changes that you can embrace to say this is where you are now? I mean, every day is a blessing and every day you put your feet on the ground and you're not guaranteed a tomorrow. So I think it's about stopping to look backwards. My mom's a perfect example of this. She was big, worked in politics during the 80s and 90s and was like power suits and the whole thing. And my niece and I, her eldest granddaughter, we saw her recently and I am not joking. In my entire life, I have never seen my mother in a pair of jeans. Never. Like she was suits and the whole thing. And she was wearing like the cutest jeans. And my niece was like, is Nana wearing jeans? And I was like, Mom, what is happening? She's like, I'm retired now and I'm a painter and I do this. And those clothes they didn't work. And I was, when she stepped into this new life and she's on boards and she's painting. And, I think that we can get so stuck of looking backwards and saying, that's what was. And yes, that was what was. And that makes who you are today. But staying stuck in it isn't going to move you forward. And it's going to keep you from participating.
Mm. So with that said, Tracy, somebody's like watching, listening, saying, you know what? I'm ready to move. Maybe, and it could be so many things: retirement, it could be divorce, it could be even sometimes death, because I work with a lot of people whose parents have passed,
Yeah, me
and
too.
it's time for them to kind of let go of that stuff. Like, what is maybe a couple of things that they can do just to kind of get started, just moving forward? So, of course, they can, as I always like to say,
Get the
make
book.
space
That'll
for
get you
happy.
started. The first
Yeah,
book has
get
a
the
whole
book.
work plan.
Yeah.
I always like to start people, and the Californian in me, I always like call this my woo woo step, but just to get clear, what's your vision? What's your vision for your life moving forward? Do you want the house where people come to visit? Do you want the house where it's not comfy because you're sick of hosting, right? Which is, I mean, I've seen that. I'm sure you have with my older clients where they're like, oh no, I'm giving all this entertaining stuff. Like I'm giving it to my kid. I don't want to hold Christmas anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. And that is so reasonable. So I think the first step is getting clear. What do you want to be in this next step in your life? And then how does your home serve you? How does your home support you? And when you get clear about that, the decisions become really easy. If you're clear, I don't want to host holidays anymore. I want to participate in them. I want to be them. I want to pass the mantle. My mom stopped doing Christmas, and she sent me all of beautiful from Germany, gorgeous Christmas ornaments. And I don't have kids. My brother has the kids. I'm not really doing Christmas. My husband's Jewish. We don't really do Christmas. I packed both of them up and sent them to my sister-in-law. They do the big tree. And guess what? Every other Christmas when I go there, I get to visit them. I get to visit those beautiful things, and the kids love them, and we talk about the stories of Nana. And so, it's that first step of clarity. And then everything falls in after that.
And I think you're right because my wonderful cousin decided to give me a 6 foot tree. And I
Thank
had it up
you.
for the first year, but then it was so awkward because then I had to have a space for it and all the things. And I was so happy and it was so freeing. It was like, you know what? I do decorate, but I just put little things here and there around the house. Nothing
Yep.
big. Not a 6 foot tree, because then you got to put the 6 foot tree up, you got to decorate, you got to take it
Yeah, you
down.
gotta take it
It was
down.
like,
You gotta find a place to store it. And you got, yeah.
yeah. So you're right. And I like what you said. Just figure out where you are and where you want to go. I love that. Just set some goals.
And I
So,
think, I've been reading a lot about just always studying and kind of paying attention about people who go into retirement, right? And for some people, it's super successful, and for other people, it's super traumatic. And the thing that they say is, the people who don't have a plan or don't get clear. I mean, some people, I have a client, he was a huge heart surgeon here in LA, huge career, worked surgeries, middle of the night. When he retired, he was very clear. He's like, I want to read the paper every day. I want to go down to my coffee shop. I want to meet the old guys and chat. He and he's so happy. But he was like, I made a decision. I want to spend the last quarter of my life reading and collecting fine wine. you know?
and you're right. You're right. Because I have a client. She was a former principal in New York, and now she just enjoys life in her condo. Sometimes she's by the pool. Just connecting with her neighbors. So you're right. You got to have a plan, whatever it is, wherever you are in life.
And I think that is worth bringing up too, Janet, in people who, especially who are listening, whose parents are maybe getting ready or they're getting ready, that is, especially in retirement and aging,
Yeah.
connection with other people. I heard this fascinating guy. He's a preventive neurologist. So he's studying how to prevent Alzheimer's. And he said that they're finding now that a lot of Alzheimer's, especially in women, is being misdiagnosed because what it actually is depression and loneliness. So
Mm.
because they're not around other people, their cognitive decline is happening faster.
Mm.
So, that's the other thing I always say about decluttering and getting organized is that you're making your space welcoming for others if you want them, or you're making it so that you can go out and lock the door and get on that cruise and connect out there, right?
And,
That it's
and that,
the simplifying opens you up to all these other experiences.
and you're right. You're right because it allows you to really just go and enjoy life. What you're saying, enjoy life, whether you want to entertain or whether you just want to go out and hang out and have fun. Entertain.
Yeah. I have to think we've had this terrible, last year was this terrible year of hurricanes and fires. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to wonder how many of those people that went through that, the day after or the weeks after, I'm sure they're sad about the stuff, but I'm sure they're like, oh, my family's alive,
Yep.
like, that, all that's, I don't know. I have days, you must too. I have days where I was like, I could just walk away from everything.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because then you realize, like you say, you realize what's really important. And
Yep.
sometimes, and I remember I talked to a friend and he said, Janet, he said, I want to be at that place where all I can do is just put everything like in a knapsack and just live life. He said, because I got the dining room table that sits 8 people. I don't even want it anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Mm.
I know. Isn't that funny? And so I
Yeah.
think that, and I think we're so burdened, and this is a big word, right? By
Mm-hmm.
other people's memories and other
Mm-hmm.
people's guilt and other, holidays just happened. Did you get a bunch of presents you didn't want? We we're so trying to please other people and make other people happy. I just had another conversation with somebody whose family is very gift givey, and they get very upset if you don't love the gift. And I said, you're not going to change them because it's impossible, but you can start to have the conversation to say like, hey, I'm trying to have less. And what I really want is to spend time with you. So how about for gifts this year, we go see a play, or we, go to lunch, or, a museum. Can I get a membership to the botanical gardens? Like, if you start to express it,
Hmm.
and be truthful in it.
And that's a good way. That's a really good way to really have this year. It's like, let's have experiences.
Yeah.
Because I will never forget one Thanksgiving, my godson, we were all going around just saying what we're thankful for. And he said, I'm thankful for all the stuff. He says, but really, I'm thankful for the experiences that I get to have with Aunt Jen. I was like, yes,
Oh
yes.
God, doesn't that just like make your day?
It really does, because I realized I could not compete with what the grandparents were giving them. It was like, okay, that's beyond my budget right there.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
taking them on trips, and I can give you these. So you're right. It's all
Well,
about.
and for those of us, I think you don't have kids either, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah. So those of us aunties, I take my role as an auntie,
Yep,
and
yep,
I have other kids who are not
yep.
blood related,
Mm-hmm,
and and I take it very seriously. And there are things that I'm like, this is what aunties do, and we're gonna go do this thing. And I see as these kids in my life get older, I'm the one that they come to about the stuff that maybe they don't want to talk to their parents about, but they know this is really, I realized this the other day. They know that if things get really bad and they tell me, like, I'm a safety line and I
mm-hmm,
will go to
mm-hmm,
yeah, I love
mm-hmm.
being an auntie. I love it.
I do
It's the
too.
greatest
I do
thing.
too, Tracy. It's just a wonderful, especially like you said, when they get older. I mean, my god, kids now in their 20s,
And it's great, right?
and
And
it's
it's a
great.
whole new, different kind of relationship,
Yeah,
right?
it's fantastic. It's
And it
fantastic.
keeps, for me, it also keeps me like
It
interested. And
does.
what are you
Oh
up to?
yeah.
And what are you doing? And
Yes,
yeah, I
it
love it.
really does. It really does, and especially even when we're at like an event or doing something experience, and I'll hear my goddaughter. We may be just eating dinner before we go on to the next thing. She's like, "So what's our next adventure?" I'm like, "Yes, okay, I'm
My
doing
work
something."
is done.
Yes, the work is done. So, Tracy, do you have a particular either app or platform that you may suggest to your clients to help them, maintain order? Or do you just prefer like paper
So,
planners?
yeah, so I have been through them all. I've tried them all.
Okay.
The best thing that works for me is a legal pad. I just like
Okay.
it. It's cheap. I bought
Okay.
fancy planners. I've spent the money. I do two things. I am a really big fan of Google Workspace because I
Yes.
keep all my documents in there,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
calendar.
Mm-hmm.
That's working
Mm-hmm.
really well. And then I
Mm-hmm.
have a master, like a main to-do list in there. And then my dailies, I just moved to a legal pad and I've done it. I've spent the money. I've had the cute ones and I'm like, nah,
I know. I
just a
know. The
legal pad. I rip
simple.
it off I try either at the end of the day or first thing in the morning to do my daily to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I also use my calendar, my digital calendar a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
refer to it. I put a lot of information in there, but I like the Google products. I really do.
Yeah, I
I've
use it.
tried all of them. Name it, I've tried
I
it.
know, I know. It's like you go, yeah, it's like every year, but I use Google Calendar. I love that. And then for me, because my projects a lot of times are like monthly, I
Yeah.
just have like the big, huge 3M, what is it called? The post-it thing.
Yeah.
And I just put everything down
Oh,
there
you
for
mean
the
the
month.
big one that's like
The
this
big
big?
one, yeah, yeah, the big one, and and that's simple. It's like this
Yep.
is yeah, because all those other things, But I always like to ask because some people are
Yeah,
like
yeah, and I'm
receptive.
always open. I'm always open to building a better mousetrap. But for me, it's just a legal pad. It's inexpensive. I'm not precious about. I can. This is something I've realized about myself. Sometimes I can get a little obsessive about my to-do list. Like sometimes I realize I'm spending a lot of time trying to make my to-do list perfect instead of just doing the things on my to-do
That's
list.
true. Yeah, I know,
You
Tracy.
know what I mean? You're like, oh well,
I
let
know.
me with the colored pens,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, just
Mm-hmm.
cross it off, just cross it off.
I know.
That's another thing too. I realized, Jen, I was thinking about this the other day. There's so many things on our to-do list that are like a 7-minute task. Like, just do them. You put it off and you put it off and you just do them. Just do them. And do
All
the
right.
icky ones first. That was a
Yep.
big thing. The things I don't want to do, just do them first thing.
Yep. And
The
that's what I had
longer
to.
the day goes, you just push them. The things you're like, oh, I don't want to make this phone call, and I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
That is so true. So true. So true. Well, Tracy, I could talk to you all day, and
I know.
at some point, I've got to make the effort to come see you so I can like give you a big hug. Oh my goodness.
Come out when the weather's terrible in Philly. We got
Yeah.
sunshine
Well,
out here all the
well,
time.
yeah. I have to do that. I have to do that. So, how can people connect with you? They can get this book, Make Space for
Yeah.
Happiness. This one you got. You everybody should have at least this. Well, you should have both books because that's one book, and then of course, as you can see, I got my little thing here, and this is the other one, Making Space Clutter Free. So, see, you got to have both of them because it's like a pair.
So,
You got to buy two, and actually, really, what I'm really telling you is buy four because you buy two of these and two of these, and then you have one for
gift them.
yourself, give one away, and then
Yep.
have your own little like a decluttering book club for yourself.
There you
You
go. There you go.
because we have to keep each other accountable because
Yep.
it's good.
And it's always good. I'm always reading stuff. Everybody's got good ideas. And so great. Instagram at Tracy underscore McCubbin, MCCUBBIN. It's fun. My website, tracymccubbin.com. I got a little email that goes out, but not too much. I'm around. I'm easy to find. And yeah, it's good. And the new year, I think as we go into 25, is that what we're going into 25? It's about having grace and kindness with ourselves. Like
Yep.
we're doing the
Yeah.
best we can. And,
Yes.
I have moments where I'm like, oh, I'm not. And it's just like, it's going to go like that. It's going to go
Yep.
like that.
And you're so true. So true. Well, of course, those watching and listening, I will have all of Tracy's links below. And of course, I'm going to actually even add a couple of more links and you can just go right and just order those books. Okay,
There
everybody?
you go. I love it. Also, I will say, uh, those books are available on Audible if you prefer an audiobook and don't want to have a book. And also, they're in almost every public library in the United States. So, I'm a
Okay.
big
So
fan of the public library.
there you go, people. There you go. Tracy, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Janet.